Hey guys, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Andrew McCarthy, and that is my friend there on the other side of the screen, Matthew Lawrence. Matthew and I go way back. We did some movies together back in the day. We were in St. Elmo's Fire together. We did a couple other movies together, some of which we probably should never mention.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Anyway, but we're here. So Matthew's going to help me too, because I'm not great at multitasking and reading. And so Matthew's going to sort of field the questions while I ramble on with you. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Matthew, for being here. So we're here to talk about my new book, Walking with Sam. And let me just, before we start diving into your questions, which we'll do pretty quick, I'll tell you a bit about the book. 25 years ago, I walked across Spain on an ancient pilgrimage route called the Camino de Santiago. I'd read about it somewhere, and it just struck me as something that I ought to go do. And, I had just sort of recovered from being famous early on in my youth, and I was looking for something in my life without even knowing I was really looking. And so I walked across Spain on this old pilgrimage route, and it changed my life. It changed the way I lived in the world. I suppose I had what we now call a bit of imposter syndrome in my youth, that was not a term back then. But I just felt in certain ways like maybe I didn't deserve all the stuff that was happening to me. And so walking across Spain helped me really sort of own myself in a real profound way, a meaningful way. It changed my life. It really did. And gave me a new place in the world. And I'd always wanted to do the walk again. And as my son, Sam, was becoming a man. He was 19 years old. And he was at a bit of a crossroads in his life, too, about going to school. He'd just broken up a relationship. He was sort of a bit lost at a moment. And so I suggested to him that why don't we walk across Spain together? And he shocked me by saying, okay. And if any of you have kids, you need to act very quickly. So the minute he said, okay, I ran to the other room to my computer and bought us 2 tickets to Spain. And 2 days later, we were walking across Spain before he knew what hit him. And, it was also one of those things that when I was 17, I left home and my relationship with my dad essentially ended right there. And I didn't have one with him through my adult life. And that's one of the biggest regrets of my life, I'd say. And I didn't want that with my kids. So it was an effort to kind of reestablish on an adult footing my relationship with my son and get to know him and let him see me and me see him for who he really is. I think particularly with family members, sometimes we just don't really see each other. We think we do, but we don't often. And that's all any of us ever really want, isn't it? See me. And so in the walk for 500 miles, it was the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we learned a lot about each other. And I learned a lot about parenting and parenthood. And he learned a lot about me, I think. And anyway, it was a profound experience. Again, I like to say it's the best thing I've ever done twice. So if any of you are at a bit of a crossroads in life, I would highly recommend going to Spain and walking the old Camino de Santiago. And Matthew, do you have any questions? I think you should walk the Camino, Matthew.
First of all, I'm a lot older than you. Okay, a lot. I know I never acted it, but I'm a lot older than you. I have a new hip, so that walking thing is out. Forget it. Okay? Here's the thing.
Okay, really don't listen to him, okay, guys? Oh, by the way, while we're here, I'm going to be signing
and anyway. I was going to say, okay, I was going to say something nice, but if you don't want them to listen, okay, fine.
No, go on.
Andrew, as he said, Andrew and I met on St. Elmo's Fire, which was a movie about me. And, but he thinks it was about him and a bunch of other people. But that's the movie we met on. We didn't really get that friendly on that movie. It was when Andrew was in LA, I lived there, shooting Pretty in Pink, which was directed by a guy I went to high school with. I've known Andrew since then. We have shared many trips together, many memories over the years. And so when he started his whole writing deal, National Geographic, travel awards, writing books, I had no idea who they were talking about. None. Because that wasn't the guy I knew.
Well, it is amazing how you have multiple lives in one life.
Yeah. All his books and work are great. As the father of a 16 and a 19-year-old, this book is astounding to me. And I've gotten through about half of it now. It's astounding to me, Andrew, the depth that you write with. I'm a sap, so I get choked up at things. But as a father, to have this experience with a son is mind-boggling. It really is. The questions, the answers, the trust that the two of you have in each other and develop along the way on this walk is truly amazing. I kept thinking as I was reading what I was reading, I kept thinking, great, what's he going to do for a follow-up to this? Sam and I go to the moon.
Yeah, we're going to start a whole series of me and Sam books. Yeah, no, I don't think he'd go for that.
Travels with Sam. Sam was, Everett, my son is 19, and Sam is now 21, I think you said, right?
Yeah.
So this is how long our relationship goes. When my son Everett was born, he was a few months old. I was having a very hard time dealing with being up all night. He had colic. So we were up all night, and I called Andrew one time because Sam was probably a year and a half or two. And I turned to Andrew for advice, which was my first big mistake.
Well, you know you're desperate when you're turning to me for advice. But anyway, we'll get back on point. Don't worry.
And I told him that I was having a lot of trouble dealing with, I was getting angry. And he was great in what he told me about how it was as a little older. I don't know if I've ever told you this. It really helped me through. And so you didn't know it. You had needs of this kind of thing in, even if you didn't know it. But
well, yeah, I never thought
I can't recommend this book.
Thanks. Should we take some questions?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Right. There are a million comments coming in. Here's one. I've seen 90-year-olds walk the Camino, and some even walked. Don't disappear like that. Okay. Here, the Camino is supposed to be life-changing. Was there a point where you both wanted to stop?
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, it's 500 miles. There are good days and bad days. You know what I mean? And we walked it in August, which is scorchingly hot up in northern Spain then. So, yeah, there were moments when you did, on day 2, Sam said to me, is there an airport in Pamplona? So you kind of get the idea there. But there were certainly moments when you wanted to stop. And all you can do is just keep going. You just keep going. Now, I'm frozen on my screen. Am I frozen on your screen there, Matthew?
Not for a second, every once in a while. I can just tell you there are questions and comments coming in from all over the world. I mean, Italy,
well, that's
England,
cool.
Screen here. I don't know. I guess apparently you're a pretty popular guy, I guess. I mean,
go figure. But yeah, we're just signing books, and we'll send it. I guess we're sending them anywhere in the world. That's awesome. So yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Hi from France, says Natalia.
Bonjour, Natasha.
You're not here. I'm trying. What was your favorite part of writing this book?
Oh, that's interesting. The favorite, I thought you were going to say what was the favorite part of the walk. My favorite part of writing the book, you know, I just love actually sitting down and writing. I'm very, as Matthew will attest, somewhat a bit of a loner at times and pretty introverted. So the idea of every morning when I would just sit down for a couple hours alone to write was just, I loved that feeling. You know, it's always, the book comes out and it's always a bit of a naked feeling. You feel like you're exposed without your pants on or something. And, but the actual writing of it is always very satisfying, even when it's, you know, and if you write a good sentence or you have a good morning writing, it's just, it makes your day, you know, it's a very satisfying feeling. So, and when you get to sort of the nub of an emotional thing, it's easy to write what happened, but then when you write and tap into what emotionally was really going on underneath, and you feel like you told the truth, that feels good.
Okay, a lot of people are asking how they get signed copies. You can go to premiercollectibles.com/walking with Sam.
I think that should be on the screen or something, right?
Order the book. Yes. Oh, here's a great one, Drew.
I'm signing him right now. Yes, Matthew.
What, practically, did you train? Shoes did you wear?
Oh, these are good questions. The only mistake you can make, and I made it the first time, was the first time I walked it 25 years earlier. I bought big, heavy leather hiking boots, and after 3 days of walking, I had blisters so bad that I had to stop in Pamplona for a week. You just need like sneakers or day hikers. You need absolutely nothing. It's not like you're hiking the Appalachian Trail or something, you know. You're in society really, and you don't need anything. You need sneakers, and because you're walking in and out of towns often, you can get what you want. You can buy a new T-shirt. You can, you know, you need so little, and it's a great metaphor. As the whole Camino is, it's sort of this great metaphor for life. Of, you know, you think you need all this stuff, and you need so little. You just need walking shoes and a good attitude. And I did no training, and you kind of walk yourself into shape. I have to say, my son, Sam, walked, and the first 2 weeks, I think he found tough, and then he got stronger, and by the end, he said, I could walk across 2 more countries. Me, being decades older, I started fine for a couple of weeks, and the last few weeks were like, ooh, I'm ready to sit down. So that's the difference in age right there. But, you know, and you can walk at your own pace. You know, the walk is usually about a month, 31, 32 days. But, you know, I know people that walk it in 6 weeks. I know people that walk in 3 weeks. So you can do everything at your own pace, right. You know, but you just keep going. There's something that you just keep, that's all you have to do is just keep going. It's like that Nemo book, just keep swimming. You know, you just keep walking.
There's another great question here. Hold on one second, because I want to make sure I get this right, and they're coming fast and furiously. Was there a moment in the trip where your perceptions of one another changed because of what either you said or Sam said, or how you felt about a particular topic? That's a really interesting question. Did you ever look at Sam after he said something to you and go, what?
Every day. But you know, I had the ultimate luxury that a parent has with an adult child, which is time. You know, because our kids are always just racing out the door. I'm like, hey, Sammy, you want to have sushi dinner? Okay, see you later. And we had time. So I didn't feel compelled to have answers and to give advice and to go, okay, here's what you need to do, and to know better. You know, what I was smart enough to do, it was the only thing I was smart enough to do, was just often keep my mouth shut and just walk beside him and let him figure it out himself. Sam had a lot going on as we were walking, and my son's funny. You sit him down to chat and you don't get too far, but you get him moving, it all starts coming out. And so every morning we'd start walking, and I knew just don't say it, just keep quiet and just start walking. And eventually, whether it was 5 minutes or 15 minutes or an hour, he'd start going. And so then, and he'd be right in the middle of these thoughts that were already going on. And I knew just kind of be there, just walk, just be there. And in my being there and not even needing to know best and play dad and play smart, I gained his trust, which is what he said to me, that you just walked with me and let me talk and vomit out this stuff and didn't judge me and didn't, try and tell me not to feel this way, was invaluable to him. And I thought that was really a great lesson for me, to not need to know everything, not need to solve it, and just be there. Just be there. It's really the only advice ever in parenting, isn't it? Just show up. Just show up.
Yeah. And, it's amazing that I'm listening to this. And as I said, I have a 16-year-old now that I'm going through so many of these things with here now. It's very hard to get him to open up about things. Very hard. So I'm not walking across Spain, but I might try to figure out someplace I can go with him that would have the same kind of, a shorter trip. But I would love to just get into those kind of conversations with him.
But it's interesting too. It's like when you drive with people, there's something, you're relieved of having to look at each other across the table. There's something else going on. The scenery's changing. And it sort of, or when you tuck little kids into bed at night. That's when I have a 9-year-old and I tuck him in bed at night. And that's when I hear all about the stuff in the day and all this stuff that somebody was mean to him and all that, when people can be vulnerable. It's just creating those environments where people can just sort of feel safe, Do we need to tell people where they can get these things to sign them again? It's livesigning.com. Here, what is it? Do you know it, Matthew?
I've been getting texts on my phone from people. How can they watch what we're doing now? And that's livesigning.com/walking with Sam. Stay out of my messages, will you please? Yeah, I'm telling you, Spain, England, Tennessee, there are comments coming. Those are comments from Facebook, I believe. But all these people are watching, which they can do on your Facebook page also. And do you walk on a regular basis just around where you live?
Well, I have to say, I've become a real walking advocate. Because I used to think walking was just the slowest way to get somewhere, right? And I've come to realize kind of walking is the event itself in many ways. It's the natural rhythm with which our brain was born to process and our emotions to process, And it's no surprise that people come up with great thoughts while they're walking. Great writers throughout the ages have always talked about how walking fuels creativity and all that kind of thing. And I have had that experience myself, and luckily I have a dog that demands to be walked long distances every day. And so I live up near Central Park, so we go into the park and I just let her off the leash when no one's looking, and we walk for as long as we can. I find and the older I get, dare I say it, I find walking to be a really valuable use of time. And of course, the longer you walk, the more you appreciate walking. Starting to walk feels like a drag. But I am a great advocate of walking now. I've become one.
Let me ask you this: when you and Sam were walking, did you talk a lot about your career, or had you already had?
We talked about everything. It was all on the table. I knew on day one when Sam said to me, "So why'd you get divorced from Mom?" I knew, oh boy, we're going to be talking about everything. And I got divorced from Sam's mom. We got divorced when he was 2, and we've had many conversations about it. But that conversation is one that you have over and over and over again with a child until it's fully processed. And it's interesting. But what did you ask me, Matthew? Did we what?
Just about your career.
Oh, my career, yeah. And Sam was really interesting.
I remember talking to you.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I remember talking to you, one of the first conversations we had, and I asked you how you got the part in Class, in the movie Class.
Yeah.
And what was it like, being this guy from NYU and all of a sudden you're you know, looking 3 inches away from that face of Jacqueline Bisset. I mean, I couldn't even imagine what that was like.
Well, I'll tell that story in a sec. But yeah, Sam did ask me, but you know, it's not so much he asked me about my career as he challenged me about my career. He said, because I direct a lot of television shows now, and he said, you know, you need to stop directing other people's TV shows and do one of your own. he said, and it's in the book, he said something to the effect of, you know, you don't have to just be what you did when you were 20, you know, it's not too late. And, you know, things like that, our kids just kick stuff right up in our face, don't they? And it's really true, you know. He said, you know, you're not just what you did when that's not your legacy. It doesn't have to be your legacy. And I think yes and no is really the answer to that, because to a certain generation of people, many of the people watching it, you know, I'll always be that person. And I've come to realize that that's a beautiful thing. I hated it for a long time, the brown pack and all that stuff. And I just wondered, well, what am I doing now? But, you know, I've come to realize that, you know, I am the avatar of youth for a certain generation and demographic of people.
Absolutely.
And that's a wonderful gift. You know, they look at me and they start talking about the movies and stuff, and their eyes kind of glaze over. And I realize they're talking about themselves, you know, and when they were young and they were just starting life, and their life was a blank slate waiting to be written upon, you know, and to represent that for someone and to remind them of that in themselves. I've realized that's kind of a great gift that I've been given, which it took me a long time to recognize that.
If I can share, can I share a story about that with you for a minute while you're signing books?
If it's a good story and a nice story, Matthew.
Okay. No, it won't be. It'll be a nice story. I live in Kentucky, and we just went through in eastern Kentucky a series of floods, and people have heard about this. I was in a movie called Eddie and the Cruisers. This goes back to what you used to do and be. That Eddie and the Cruisers came out 40 years ago, and I decided, because it has a cult following, to do a special screening one night here in the city I live in and donate the proceeds to Eastern Kentucky. And about 100 people showed up, and it was great. And before the movie, they would come up to me and tell me why that movie meant so much to them.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized what you were just talking about. Yeah, the effect work that we did back then is an incredible gift. It's just a gift.
And it's also like these movies they're our friends. You know, it's like I listened to Bruce Springsteen now for 40 years, and, you know, some of his recent albums, okay, yeah, they're good, but they're never going to be as good to me as, you know, Darkness on the Edge of Town or Born to Run was. Because not only are they great records in and of themselves, but I have this history with them, and I have my emotional history. So I hear it, and I remember that incident, and I remember that incident, I remember that. So they're like, they've been with me through life, like these movies are. I saw a post up, I love Mannequin. And, you know, Mannequin is the silliest movie, but it's the most open-hearted, sort of genuine, loving movie. And that's a movie that could never be made today because of, you know, it's about a mannequin that comes to life only for a man. And, like, that could never be made now, and I guess appropriately so. But it had such an open heart, you know, and that movie, you know, like say we take these movies like Eddie and the Cruisers and like our movie St. Elmo's Fire and Pretty in Pink and these songs that I mentioned, like Bruce Springsteen songs, and we have a relationship with them over time, you know, and that's a value.
You know, I said before, the memories that you and I share are really too numerous to count over all these years. But one, I've told you this before, Bruce Springsteen, many years ago, you and I were together when Glory Days came on. And at the line, back in school, she would turn all the boys' heads. We both went like that, just like.
And I just did.
And every time I hear it, doesn't matter where I am, I do that, and it always makes me smile. Always.
I do the exact same thing, and I always think of you when I do it. Yeah, that's the connection we have to that kind of thing, and that's the connection people have to our movies and stuff, and it's wonderful. you know, and that's
right.
And remember the person we shared it with, we went to that movie with. Like, I always think of you when I hear that song, and I do that. And for however many, 40 years. And that's one of the beautiful things about what we do and the gift that we get, that we underestimate at times. And so I'm glad that that came up. I'm signing away here.
Here's another great question. Here's a great question. Now that you're doing lots more writing and directing, and do you think you'll do more? Huh?
I'm sorry, you broke up there. Now that I'm doing more writing, what?
Do you miss acting, and do you think you'll do more?
Just acted on a show called The Resident for a season, a medical show, which I had directed for the person who created it. So they just said, hey, do you want to act and do you want to play this pediatric surgeon on my show? And I said, I'd love to. And it was just so much fun, actually, to go back and act again. It's like there's an old joke of two fish are swimming in the water, and one swims by the other and says, good morning, ain't the water fine? And the other fish says, what water? And that's kind of how I felt when I was acting again. It just was like breathing to me. It was just so natural to me again, because it was how I located myself when I was 15 years old. You know, I was cut from the high school basketball team, and my mother told me to try out for the play. And I'm like, I don't want to be in the play. I want to be the point guard. But I did. I tried out for the play, and I was the Artful Dodger in Oliver. And it changed my life. I walked out on stage at 15 in the high school play, and in that instant, I knew that's what I'm going to do with my life. And so to go back to it again after not doing it much for like 10 years was a revelation to me. You know, I think at the bottom of it all, I'll always be first and foremost an actor. And so I would, yes, I'd like to continue doing it. And the only problem with playing a doctor on a medical show was that they gave me all this jargon to say and about medical diseases and stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just can't say. So finally they wised up sort of and gave me like this assistant to go, tell her what she's got, you know, because I just couldn't remember all these medical terms. But I love the acting again. Yeah.
They, when I was on Beverly Hills 90210 for 9 years, and I was an oral surgeon. And one day I got the script and it said, Mel is in his office performing a root canal. And I said to the writer of the script, have you ever had a root canal? He said, no. I said, how about in the scene, I have one of those mirror things and I'm looking at somebody's mouth, because I ain't doing somebody's root canal in this scene. There's no way. It's the same thing. They say all that stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's see. There were people are asking questions about what you learned about each other. You've, what's a piece of advice you would give to fathers raising and training sons? Boy, well, you got 5 hours or so.
Well, you know, I try not to give advice, because it's like, what do I know? But I do think just sort of sharing the truth of who you are. Oh, I got to plug in. Wait. Sharing the truth of who you are is like the most we can offer kids, because people don't listen. Our kids don't listen. They see by what we do, how we behave, how to, you know. And so I don't know. I think the answer is just sort of, like, I had a history of alcohol abuse when I was young. And, you know, my kids are fully aware of it. And we talk about it, you know, easily and freely. And I just think sharing who we are is like the best thing that we can give them. And, you know, I'll tell you a quick story. When my son, Sam, from this book, was 8 or 9 years old, we were taking a trip we were in Wyoming, and we were in a diner. And it was one of those classic Americana diners. We were the only ones in the place, and the waitress recognized me from, like, you're that guy in Mannequin. And I'm like, yes, I am. And I had kept my movie career very separate from my kids. They didn't really know much about any of it. They knew I was an actor, but they didn't really know anything. And I wanted to keep them very protected from that. And we were trapped. This waitress was like, I love that movie. She's taking pictures, getting autographs. She's getting the cook out of the kitchen. We're all taking. It's just, I was dying. And when it was over, I turned to my 9-year-old son and said, "Was that okay for you?" And he said, "Oh, Dad, I was so proud." And I realized in that instant, I had done everything wrong in keeping my life secret from my kids. That was a seminal moment, that was a massive experience in my life, being famous young in the movies. And to keep that, or to not let my kids fully know about that, was a real disservice to them and to our relationship. So in that instant, when he said that to me, I realized I had done everything wrong. And ever since then, everything has been fair game and it's on the table,
I just got chills, by the way, when you
Close
said
the window.
Boom. At what age did you start? When did that happen? How old was Sam?
Sam was about 8 or 9 at that time. And I have to say, Sam is now an actor. He's on a show called Dead to Me, a Netflix show. And he's done a bunch of other stuff, but that's probably what he's most successful for. So yes, my son and my daughter also have followed in my acting footsteps, which I have to tell you, the last thing I ever wanted was my kids to become actors. But like I was saying before, acting saved my life when I was 15, when I walked out on stage as the Artful Dodger. And who am I to say that the kids, shouldn't do that, because it saved me, and kids when they're teenagers need to find something, whether it's sports or music or whatever. And I found acting, and, my kids have too. And it's, God bless it.
These comments are coming up. Sam is great on Dead to Me.
He's great, yeah.
And LOL closed the window from Lucy. Thanks, Lucy.
Yeah, Lucy. This book's for you, Lucy. I'm going to sign this one for you right now, Lucy.
This is great.
Do people know how to order these things? Do people know where to get them? Is that on the screen or something? I'm not very good at this.
I think it should be.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Hold on 1 second because mine is cut up. Hold on. premiercollectibles.com/walkingwithsam. That's how you get them. Premier Collectibles Sam. Walking up. What was the easiest part of your trip with Sam?
Wow, what an interesting question. That's such an easy question. I don't have an answer. The easiest part was deciding to go, because I knew what a profound experience it would be. I knew how much it had meant to me so many years ago. I was so excited to go again. I was so excited to go. The easiest part was just going, which is often, I think, the hardest part for people, because it's like, what? How do I do this? What do I do? Walk 500 miles across Spain, huh? But it's so easy. You just go and you begin, and there's so much information on it online now that it's easy to find. But and one of the beautiful things too is it's so much of our daily life has fallen away. When you're walking across Spain, all you're doing is walking and finding a place to eat and finding a place to sleep, which is not easy to do, not difficult to do. It's easy to find food and shelter on the Camino. And so everything else just kind of falls away in a wonderful way. And even your phone, like our phones, we started at the beginning, using them a lot. And by the end, it'd be like, oh my God, I didn't look at my phone all day. And they receded to like their appropriate place in our life, which is so rare. We're not defaulting to our phones every 5 minutes and stuff. So, and the camaraderie on the Camino is great. There's so many people, other people from all over the world walking it, So what's the easiest? I don't know if anything's easy, but it's all, even the tough parts were a pleasure, because you knew you were doing something valuable with your time. Yeah. It seems like, of course, to the wide world, what you're doing is like, you're not accomplishing anything. You're walking for a month. But I have to say, it's one of the most valuable things I've ever done, twice.
Absolutely. Talking about accomplishments, give me a break. If anybody thinks that that's not an accomplishment, all of it, everything about it. Did you or Sam, this is a question coming from me, did you or Sam speak Spanish?
See, I speak terrible Spanish, and Sam spoke no Spanish, and you're fine. You don't need to speak Spanish. It certainly makes the experience more rich because you can communicate in depth with the local people. But I spoke, a very poor, rudimentary kind of Camino Spanish, I called it. I got where our needs could get met, and I could have little chats with people. I don't speak it as well as you do, Matthew.
Donde está el cuarto de baño? There you go.
Exactly. And so, but it's not necessary also, because there are a lot of people that speak English and or multiple languages all along the Camino, and they know why you're there, and your needs will get met, because they're going to make money off you, so they're going to meet your needs. But you also, it's of course best, and if you can speak a little bit, because it just people also appreciate it when you try and speak their language.
Again, it's premiercollectibles.com/walking with Sam. Here's one. What's been a highlight or pinch me moment in your career? Oh, you've had too many of those to pick.
I'm black and blue from pinching. Yes, I just said that. Okay. I had, there are so many, and I have to say, when I was one of the first ones, when I was young, this goes back to the story you said, Matthew, about class, how I got my first movie. I was 19 years old, and there's Matthew's dog in the background, yappy thing, and
yeah, that's sorry about that.
When I was 19, I just got kicked out of college, and okay, you go. Don't kick the dog. When I was 19, I was kicked out of college, and a friend of mine called me a few days after I was kicked out of college because I didn't go. I didn't go to my classes. That's why I got kicked out. I was studying acting. I used to go to the acting classes, but not the academic classes. Anyway, there was an ad in the newspaper that a friend called me and said, they're casting a movie. It's an open call, meaning anybody can go, and they're looking for somebody 18, vulnerable, and sensitive. And I was like, dude, that's me. And so I went to the audition for an 18, vulnerable, sensitive kid, and there were 500 other 18, vulnerable, sensitive kids waiting in the hallway. And I auditioned, and I was then flown out to California. The last audition was to go out and meet Jacqueline Bisset, who was at the time, and she was 38, I was 19, and I was to play her young lover in the movie. And at that time, Jacqueline Bisset, Time magazine had recently called her the most beautiful film actress of all time. And she certainly was, and still is at 70 odd years old. And to go to her house, I was brought up to her house to meet her, to be approved by Jacqueline Bisset. So I was driven up to the Hollywood Hills, and I met Jacqueline there. And that was my first sort of pinch me moment in Hollywood. It was like, is this happening to me? And that was, but there's so many sort of moments. I've been so lucky and blessed with so many kind of things. And one of the things I've learned in life, I often didn't appreciate moments while they were happening. I'd be too overwhelmed or anxious or nervous about them. But in hindsight, so happy. And as I've gotten older, I've learned to be to acknowledge and recognize when I'm happy in the moment. I think it's one of the blessings that comes with age, is sort of recognizing that. And I have learned to realize that as I've gotten older, which I didn't, as you will attest, Matthew, didn't always acknowledge that in my youth.
Yeah, none of us did, though. I've been doing, for some reason, I've been doing some podcasts. People have been asking me to do podcasts. And the first one, it was okay. And when I finished, I thought what was so great about it was it reminded me of things that I don't even think about anymore because of stress and problems I have day to day. And I would say things like, I had dinner in London with Ingrid Bergman. I hadn't thought about that in
Drop the mic.
decades.
You had dinner with Ingrid Bergman?
Whoa. Oh, yeah. I got stories to tell you, pal.
Okay, next time.
Yeah. Yep.
That'll be for hour 2.
Okay. That'll be cool. These comments are so incredible from literally, here's one from Cairo, Egypt. Here's one. These are all people that are watching now. Toronto, England, Something. Here's one. After the fight with Rob Lowe, your mom called yesterday. The dog died. From Class. It's a quote. After the fight with Rob, I just saw a great picture of you and Rob together recently.
Yeah, I hadn't seen Rob in, I don't know, 30 years. And I have been making a documentary about the Brat Pack since I wrote a book a couple of years ago about my days in the Brat Pack called Brat. And when I finished it, I kind of thought, I've now really kind of looked at under the rock of what it meant to me, but I don't know what it meant to any of the other guys. So I decided to make a documentary about it. So I called everybody up and I went out and saw people, and talked to them and interviewed them on tape about. And so I hadn't seen Emilio in 30 years. I hadn't seen Demi Moore, Ali Sheedy in decades. And it was so nice we all had so much affection for each other in a way that I don't think that we did when we were younger, because I think when you're young, you're competitive and you're insecure and you're anxious and, but now seeing each other and coming back to each other again, it was like old home week, and we were members of this club and it was an amazing experience to see everybody again and, to reconnect. And, we had so much affection for each other, and consequently we then had so much affection for our youth in a way that we didn't before. Yeah. That was really, I guess that's another one of those things that comes with being old. you have those moments that you recognize how important these things were, and to be able to get the opportunity, which you don't always have, to reconnect like that was fantastic. It's fantastic. And that's a documentary, I hope will be coming out in the fall.
Yeah, by the way, I'm a little upset with you that I'm not in the Brat Pack documentary, because I was a huge part of that, clearly. I mean, really.
I know.
What are you planning? I know it's early and you just did this, but do you have a plan for maybe another trip with Sam?
Or
maybe the next one will be with your other children.
Well, Willow, my daughter Willow's 16, and she said, "Can we just go to Paris instead, Dad?" So that's her trip. And I actually just came back from in my other life, I'm a travel writer, and I was writing an article about Botswana in Africa, and I just took my 9-year-old son with me to that, which was, on that note, I think it's one of the greatest things that we can do is create little citizens of the world with our kids, and take them traveling. My parents said to me, when I was young, they said, we'll go to Europe when you're old enough to appreciate it. And we never went. So I'm not sure what that means. But I've been taking my kids long before they were able to appreciate wherever they were. I just think it's a great thing that we can do for them, and like with my son, I think he learned as much about life digging a hole and pooping in the ground in Botswana as he did seeing the elephants. He'd probably not want me to talk about that. But I mean, that was like a really big deal, learning to do that. And, it was an amazing experience taking him to Africa.
Yeah, I'm going to have to figure out what to do. By the way, somebody just put up a line that Demi said from St. Elmo's. It said, "This is my decorator, Ron. He's fabulous."
Well, we should tell people that you were, in fact, Ron in St. Elmo's.
I was.
But people quote movies all the time, don't they? They quote movies to us all the time. I mean,
well, I do. I can do the entire Godfather not trilogy, part 1 and part 2, every line.
And so, I can't tell you the amount of times people have come up to me and said, "Blaine, that's not a name. That's a major appliance." And invariably, I have to go. And, can I just confess right here? I've always hated that line. Anyhow.
That's why you keep having to repeat it, clearly.
That's it. Until I embrace it, it's going to be thrown in my face. It's true.
Okay, here's a good one. Here's a role that you wish you had played that you didn't get.
I always try and
think
did
they ever ask you to run?
Yeah, no, I turned that down. Who'd want to do that? Um, no, no. Back in the day, we didn't get offered movies really like that. It was different. No, I wanted to be in a movie called a Q&A, which was like the Sidney Lumet movie that Timothy Hutton got. But I mean, no one would remember it now. But at the time, it was a big deal. But sure, there are always disappointments and things. But there's nothing I turned down that I go, oh my God, I turned down The Godfather. No, it didn't.
Yeah.
It just didn't happen.
Yeah. I remember that movie, Q&A, because first job. So everything that Sidney did, I know about. I remember.
Yeah, well, he was great.
You would have been a lot better than Timothy Hutton.
Yeah, much better, much better. Yeah.
Much.
I interviewed Tim for my Brad Pack documentary.
I'm looking to see there, and by the way, that dog is going. He hasn't done this in 3 days. There's probably a dog walking 8 blocks away that he's looking at in the window. I apologize. Weren't you supposed to play somebody else in the other part?
In Weekend at Bernie's, yeah.
Is that true?
In Weekend at Bernie's, which I love Weekend at Bernie's. I think that of all the movies I've done, that Weekend at Bernie's has this ongoing life that keeps coming up. Every time a politician or somebody falls down, they make a meme of Weekend at Bernie's and me holding up Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden.
Oh, yeah.
And but yeah, they asked me to play the other part in Bernie. They played the part Jonathan Silverman played, and I just been playing all these nice guys and the guy with the girl and all that stuff, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to play kind of the jerk, and I thought I could be funny playing him, and I really I modeled him on a friend of mine, down the wardrobe, the purple sneakers and all that kind of stuff. And so it was great fun to play that guy in Weekend at Bernie's. And I have to confess, I was somewhere in a hotel a couple weeks ago, and I turned on the TV and Weekend at Bernie's was on, and like the last 20 minutes of it were on, the whole silly boat thing at the end and all that stuff. And when Don Calfa comes in and I sat there alone in my hotel room and watched the last 20 minutes of Weekend Burgers, and I thought it was absolutely hysterical. And I never watch my movies, but just sitting there alone in the room, and because we're here alone, just all of us, I sat there and I recited some of the lines back to the screen as it was going by, and that I could still remember them was shocking to me, but I just thought it was really funny, and I really enjoyed myself in that movie. I just had a visual of you doing that. That's awesome. It's shameless. It's shameless. So what? Here's a great question. We may not have enough time. If you could have taken this trip with your dad, do you think it would have changed your relationship? You're going to make me cry. That never would have happened with my dad. But yeah, of course. It would change anybody's relationship, It would change it changes your relationship with yourself if you go alone. It changes your relationship with whoever you go with. It's a deep and meaningful thing. And I don't think my dad would have ever wanted to do that. I think, maybe he would have wanted to do it. But yes, of course, it would have changed it, and maybe it would have made things, because my relationship with my dad was pretty, remote in my adult life. I know you loved your dad deeply, and I envy that kind of closeness, which is why I wanted to walk with Sam, to have that, to establish that if we could. So sure, of course, it would have been a beautiful thing. Right. Have you spoken with any other actors who have walked the Camino? I think I saw a question before about maybe Emilio did this. Is that Emilio made a lovely movie about the Camino called The Way with his father Martin Sheen starred in. So they didn't walk the Camino. Right. They made a movie about walking the Camino. Okay. So they'd certainly been there, and it's a lovely movie, and it's just actually having a second life right now. It's being re-released, and it deserves it, because it's a a lovely movie. So, and I chatted with Emilio about the Camino, and yeah. So it's funny that two Brat Packers would have Camino history.
How about this one? My favorite movie of yours, this is from Brendan, is Night of the Running Man. Now, I was in Night of the Running Man with you. Is that correct?
Yes. Who could ever forget?
Who could ever forget? You called me and you said, you want to go to Vegas and shoot a movie for a couple of days, and you're not in it long. You get run over by a taxi.
But we had a good time.
I went, yeah, sure. That'd be fun.
I just saw things pop up here that Shirley MacLaine did the walk. Yeah, Shirley MacLaine did the walk and wrote a book about it. I think it was called Don't Fall Off the Mountain. I never read it, but yeah, she did the Camino years ago.
Very cool. Very cool.
Not as cool as you in Las Vegas, though. That is true. That is true. And we got to meet Engelbert Humperdinck at that time, and that was an exciting thing to do, actually. So anyhow.
I've never forgotten. I remember a phone call you made to me.
Maybe we shouldn't talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'll talk to you about that some other time. Meanwhile, hi, Andrew from Manila in the Philippines. Fresh horses is underrated. I agree.
I disagree.
I agree with that.
I disagree. I didn't think that movie worked. I didn't think that movie worked. I haven't seen it since it came out a million years ago, but yeah, I didn't think it.
No,
I didn't think it worked.
You can't critique your own.
No,
work.
no,
Everybody
that's for
knows.
sure.
Yeah, you can't. Let's see. Anything else we have here that you might on? The comments are just fantastic about. Seriously, not all of them are about the crushes people had on you and all those things. This book, and just the people that haven't read it yet, who I just ordered it, they all say the same thing about the feeling they get just from hearing you talk about your relationship with Sam and wanting to do this. I get choked up talking about it, thinking about my sons. It's a great thing, Andrew.
Well,
great thing.
It was a meaningful thing in my life for sure. And I hope, people can, you hope that people can read, they read the book, and then even if they're not walking across Spain, I mean, most people aren't going to do that, but that you can have identify with the feelings and all that. And that's, that's what it's about, is that kind of connection. We all want that kind of connection with our kids, and our kids are, running out away from us as fast as they can to get out into the world. And that's the way it works. And that's the way it should be. But, yeah, I mean, hopefully people would read it and just get that sense of connection and those feelings and those emotions, and they nod their head, and then they're sort of, they're right there with us walking along the Camino.
Right. No, I don't have any doubt that this will happen. Any doubt. Are you, so you don't know when you might take another trip like this, but how many ideas for books do you have running around your brain at any one time?
I have one right now that I'm starting to work on. So you kind of have these ideas, well, I do anyway, that float around, and then one of them will take root. I try never to talk about them too soon, because they're like little sprouts that, they can be squashed easily, so you don't want anybody to go, oh, yeah, no, that's a good idea. It's like, okay, that's over then, So until they're sort of unshakable and that you're going to do it, I try not to tell anybody. But I have one that I'm
Yeah, okay. Yeah, the more I listen to you, I just, you're kind of like Hemingway to me now.
Yes, that's true, Matthew.
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, I remember one time you ran with the Bulls, didn't you?
No, but the walk does go. Okay. The walk in Spain does go through Pamplona, where they do the running of the Bulls. But no, I never.
That's what
I never ran with the Bulls. But I always had the fantasy to do it. But now I am older and wiser and know that would be really stupid.
Yeah, that would be really stupid. Is there a place now, you have traveled more than anybody I know in your National Geographic and your travel writings and doing films and all the things you do. Where's a place that you haven't been that you know you will get to sometime?
Well, I don't know that I'll get there. I wanted to go to Antarctica for a long time. I was almost going twice, and I'd like to get there before it melts. I've never been to Egypt. I'd like to go to Egypt. I'd like to go anywhere. You know, I'm game to go anywhere. Yeah. I'm like, if I'm not having a good time somewhere, I'm like my kids. I either need a nap or a snack, you know. But I'm interested. I love the idea of just going and being far from home. That to me is a very satisfying feeling. I feel very awake and very alive when I'm far from home like that. And I always like it.
Can I ask you this question? So you're in New York City right now, is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you still in the wonderful place that I remember?
No, I live in a different place now. No.
You're not a little Graceland?
No.
Anymore?
No. I don't live in little Graceland. Although I just started watching, I watched the Elvis movie. Have you seen it? Can we put in a plug for this movie, the Baz Luhrmann movie? Yes. It's fantastic. I loved it. I thought it was just great. Yeah. I recommend it to all people. And we're being given a hook here, Matthew. We only have one more, another minute or so. I'm getting the sign.
Okay. Well, I can just say, all these people they're all getting this book, and if you're watching or listening, this will be one of the best reads you will ever have for all parts of your life. Thank you for friendship and for including me in this. It was great.
Well, thank you, Matthew. He's awesome, isn't he, everybody? Thank you. I'm lucky to have a friend like you. And thank everybody for watching. And I guess you can grab the book wherever the link is there. I hope you enjoy it. And I really thank you for coming out in the middle of the day on a Tuesday. All right. And we'll see you next time. See you next book. Okay.
Peace.
Hey, this is John Acuff, New York Times best-selling author of 7 books and someone who's done a live signing. If you like the one you just watched, make sure you check out our YouTube channel. It's full of amazing authors having great conversations and signing books for viewers just like you. So make sure you subscribe, and thanks for watching today.